It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You go to emailrevealer.com. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Also, all kinds of different services, adoption investigations, catfish investigations. If you're chatting with somebody online, you're not sure who they are, we can do a little catfish investigation for you. Asset searches, locates, all kind of fun stuff at emailrevealer.com. Okay. I got to admit, this is one of my favorite guests. Okay, Dr. Judith Reisman. She came on the show about 4 years ago, and one of my favorite shows. Go back and check out the archives because we really get into the whole history of Judith Reisman. This woman is a legend. I don't know what the word I'm trying to use here, but this is a real, true fighter for a very long time, a true American hero.
Dr. You're going to flatter me. You're going to.
I'm serious, Dr. You gotta go back and listen to the old show, but go back and watch the old episodes with Phil Donahue, where Judith Reisman, as a young woman, is taking on Phil Donahue and stuff like that. It's just so, it's very inspiring. Dr. Judith Reisman. Tell us about yourself. Dr. Judith Reisman, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be back with you. Yeah. Well, let's see. Well, the most important thing, I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. And I worked for Captain Kangaroo Television, CBS, NBC, ABC, did a lot of TV before I got into the nasty business back in 1960s, and started to uncover why our kids were being sexually molested, abused, because they were back in the 60s. Nothing like today, of course, nothing like today. But I saw the massive change that was taking place, the problems in particular, about kids being kidnapped and whatnot. And so I started to try to figure out why. So I ended up going back to school, did a PhD at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, a very respectable, university. We won't go into that. We can do that some other time. And then went to Wales to deliver a paper on what I was finding in Playboy, which was child pornography. And while I was at the university, and met a man in Wales who was a psychologist. And he said, if you're worried about Judith Reisman, he said, no, if you're worried about child sexual abuse, he said, you ought to look at the Kinsey reports. And I said, why? And so he said, because I worked with Kinsey and Pomeroy. One is pedophile, the other one is a homosexual. I said, which is which? He said, read and discover. And then he ran off, or he left. And, the guy changed my life. I keep thinking if he hears one of these broadcasts and I'm talking about that event, I want to know who he is,
Well, Dr. Reisman, let me ask you a question, because when you say that there was child pornography in Playboy, most of the people listening to this would say, what are you talking about? Hugh Hefner's a hero. Hugh Hefner started this whole liberation movement. He was a great, we just eulogized him. Wonderful man. What do you have to tell us?
Well, he started the legalization, or not, Kinsey started the legalization of children, as well, lowering the age of consent and so forth. But Hefner he was Kinsey's pamphleteer. He said Kinsey, is the researcher. He said he's a scientist, and this was when he was a virgin still in college, Hugh Hefner. And he said, I will be Kinsey's pamphleteer. I will, and he was. I mean, Playboy magazine. So obviously, if Kinsey was conducting research, quote research, was using children for orgasm research, timing it, clocking their responses when they fainted and had convulsions. I mean, horrible things. Well, if he was doing all that, Kinsey, well then, if Hefner was his pamphleteer, you could start to look in there and see children being used in sex situations, and they certainly were. Yeah, they certainly were. And I won against Playboy in the Netherlands in 1994. Playboy sued for libel and slander when I said that they were producing child pornography systemically, not one-off, not accidentally, right? So they sued. And you'll never read about it in Playboy, right, or in any newspaper. But they lost because the judge said no. I sent them I sent the judge the pictures with the dates and the pages, and he said these are kids, and these are kids in bed with old men talking about their sex activity with the old men. He's no argument. She's right. So we won, and that's, the American public has just been brought into the addiction to child pornography, the addiction to seeing children as sexual and acting out on children most violently. I know you had your guest was Lori Handrahan. She's done a lot of really important work in that regard. And my research for the Department of Justice, which was children, crime, and violence in Playboy, Penthouse, and Hustler, which you can get on my website, drjudithreisman.org or com. You can download that research. But it was kept from the public, just like Kinsey's lies and fraud and crimes.
Yeah, give us some ideas, because again, people will think, well, Kinsey, the Kinsey Institute, the Kinsey Report. Kinsey was a scientist. He was a doctor. He was a legitimate guy. So give us an idea of the real Kinsey and what he was doing to little 4-year-old kids and what he was doing in his bathtub to himself and all this bizarre stuff,
Yeah. No, not 4-year-olds, yes, but also 2-month-olds.
Oh, God.
2-month-olds. There are 5 tables in his own book. I was condemned by somebody who said, she doesn't say anything that's not in his own book. Yes. Yeah, I don't say anything that's not in his own books. He had 5 tables with orgasm records. He said orgasm. But you see, Kinsey himself, of course, was a sadomasochist and a pedophile, obviously, or a pederast. Really, he focused on little boys. They were timed around the clock, 24 hours around the clock, some of these little kids. We don't know who died, because he only gave you records on the people on the children that he would give you records on. But I mean, you don't torture little children, little babies like that, and not have really traumatic, little 2-month-old. Come on, So how many of those little babies died? Who knows? And where he got them from. When I wrote to the Kinsey Institute, they said that he got the children from homosexuals who had relationships with the children, and from parents. And so, there were parents who would sell their children. Yes, there were, as there are today. And they're nursery school teachers and so forth. But but he described the children's reactions, and he called these orgasms when they screamed, when they cried, when they had convulsions. I'm using his own words. When they were hysterical, they fainted, and they struck what he called the partner. That was the child's partner. Well, excuse me, but that's a rapist, you know, a man comes and rapes a child, and he says, the baby is my partner, you know? Yeah. So those were the ways that he managed to get this through without the public kind of recognize what he was saying. I interviewed Dr. Bob, who had protested about Kinsey's research back in '54 at a congressional hearing, and he said to me, he said I can't believe that I didn't see what he did to the children. I can't believe it, because when you go back and you look, it's right staring you in the face. But you know, we were a very innocent, believing, naive, people back in the 50s and the 40s.
Dr. Reisman, what about today, though? Isn't Kinsey's work and his studies still used in colleges today?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, certainly. Yes, of course. Yeah, he's still credited. He's still credited with being the great scientist, sex scientist. He's quoted all the time. I just saw an article just now about what's going on in the Silicon Valley. They're having all these swatting, the SWAT, wife SWAT things and whatnot, and they're crediting themselves with something that the Kinsey Institute has been pushing for 60 years. And not only here in the United States, of course, but globally. They have the Kinsey Institute has special ECOSAC, whatever that is. It's where they can go worldwide through the UN and educate these uneducated, other small countries who need money about sexuality, so they can train them and groom their children for sexual abuse, the way we're grooming our children in our schools daily. It depends on the school, of course, but pretty much across the board, our schools are promoting sex. So if they're promoting sex, they have what's called the obscenity exemption. Schools are exempted from the laws that are protection of minors. They are exempt from those laws so that they can teach, because we absolutely know all our teachers are, very puritanistic. Yeah, no, they're not. And,
Dr. Reisman, that's right. That's fascinating, because you're right. You wouldn't be able to take a 7 or 8 year old child into a movie theater and show them an R-rated movie. They wouldn't let you do it, but they could.
And a 15-year-old,
right? An
R-rated movie, yeah. But they have obscenity exemptions for schools and libraries. Schools and libraries, and of course medical people. Obviously, that's a whole different ball of wax here. But so any pedophile teacher or pederast teacher or administrator, and there are many, because they're our highest offenders. We have research to establish that through Sesame. There's a special organization about the sex offenders in education, and they're much worse. They're much more offenses taking place than were taking place per capita amongst the clergy. So they get to show kids anything they want. They are showing them pornography direct. they are engaging in, as we know, wide-scale sexual offenses with the children, and why, So, yeah, they have an obscenity exemption, which, by the way, we're trying to fight right now. We're trying to get that initiated in all of our legislatures to undo that law as it exists in just about every state. You don't have obscenity exemptions for teachers in schools to teach children how to engage in various kinds of sex, which they do under the umbrella of protecting children from STDs and from making children who think that they are homosexual. By the way, Kinsey was the first guy, he was the guy who said 10 to 37% of the population is homosexual males. So yeah, I'm just rattling. I'm
no, that's
sorry.
Okay. But one thing though, before we get too far off, because we can thank Kinsey for Hefner.
Yeah.
But Kinsey had a relationship with Aleister Crowley, the Beast.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Give us a little background on that.
Well, he had a relationship, we know, with Rene Guyon, who wrote sexual, who created the concept sex before 8 or it's too late,
really?
That kind of thing. And he was a French jurist. And we know that we have exchanges between them, but we also know that he was very involved with Aleister Crowley, who was the Beast, what they called him, what kind of beast? I've forgotten what beast he was called. But anyway, Crowley, who was a Satanist, we know that, because he traveled to the Abbey Sema, his special place.
The Thelema, yeah.
Yeah. But Crowley was dead when he went there. But I have argued that he went there to try and get any possible letters between himself and Crowley. There was absolutely no question that he had tremendous effect on Crowley, and that Crowley appears to have been having some kind of relationship with Kinsey too. Who goes all the way? He never traveled from this country, never, except to go to Mexico for once or twice. He never traveled. Why would he go especially to Italy, to the lair, to Crowley's lair? Come on. So he was after what I believe were his letters to Crowley. Well, he had done that before with a guy he was, I think, having sexual relationships with. He went to his university as soon as the guy died and he went into his illegally entered his offices to try to get records, that he would involve him in something sordid. Anyway, the guy was Kinsey was absolutely a perverted pedophile pederast. There's no question about that. And built his entire scientific arguments to justify his own activity, which were torturous, and which did involve, which did involve children as young as 2 months of age.
But also self-mutilation too.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah. You would think you run into a guy like this on the subway, you call a cop, but they bring him into a college and teach a course on him,
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on.
Amazing.
And the majority of our, quote, sex educators, right, have been, of course, educated in the Kinsey model, the Kinsey belief system, thematically, SICUS, the Sex Information Education Council of the United States, which goes all over the world, educating the world, but educating our children, of course. All that was created at the Kinsey Institute. There was a special agreement between Kinsey and the director of SICUS, which had been the medical director of Planned Parenthood, Mary Keldron. There was a special arrangement, she says, where they would be teaching sex education, and the Kinsey Institute would, quote, do the research. Remember, these are the guys that the Pornography Commission back in the 70s went to Indiana, to the university, to the Kinsey Institute, to learn everything about human sexuality. Well, look at us. I mean, we're having little babies, infants raped, for fun and frolic. We have guys being arrested who spent a lifetime getting their careers, earning their doctorates, getting medical degrees, getting to the tops of their professions, that are being arrested for child pornography, which is child rape and torture of infants and children. Who would imagine? I did imagine. No, I don't think I imagined that bad. I don't know. I have to think about it. Back in the 50s and 60s, and when I did my research in the 70s, who would imagine people would risk everything, not just their families, their entire careers, they're humiliating, yeah? But they're being arrested with these horrible pornographic activities. We don't even look at pornography anymore. I mean, what, these sexy girls? Come on. If you're not torturing them now, 4 or 5 guys, if you're not doing horrible things, who pays attention? Yeah. People want your need mentally. Your brains have been changed to such an extent. The human brain requires these horrible things, or it simply cannot function anymore, Yeah,
the audience, a lot of the audience is young, and they're good-hearted people. They're on, but a lot of the audience is young. But like back in the 70s, like a TV show like Three's Company was considered so edgy and risque that, and there was nothing. There was no nudity. There was no frank language. There was nothing.
No. Just 2 girls and a guy that
roommates
said, let's be roommates because it's going to be good, financially, and they were friends.
Right.
They were friends. Yeah.
Just imagine.
We have to understand those boundaries that we had established under our Judeo-Christian uptight laws, which, by the way, let me not forget to mention that in 1950, rape was punishable by death in half the states and by life in just about all the other ones, right? Yeah. That was the reality of how we treated death. And seduction, telling a girl that you just loved her, I just really love you, I want you to bear my children one day. Seduction was punishable. It was a felony even in California. Yeah. So the breakdown in our laws, our Judeo-Christian laws, which really, under the patriarchy, really had come to favor women and children. It did. There was before no-fault divorce, thank you, Ronald Reagan. In 1969, remember, he was a divorcee, a divorce guy himself, yeah. And he favored no-fault divorce, as did Playboy. Playboy started pushing no-fault divorce in its very first issue called, Miss Gold Digger. Yeah, right. Women only want you for your money. And in those years, women used to get child custody, alimony, the car, the house, And sometimes it wasn't really fair, but mostly it was the guy committing adultery. Adultery was absolutely punishable. Yeah, you'd lose everything.
Well, I tell you, in those days, you'd lose everything, but at least it would go to your wife and kids. Now it goes to the lawyers and the courts and the experts and all the industry. The industry.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's become a major industry, but in those days it was quite simple. Did he commit adultery? Now, sometimes she committed adultery, but it was rare. Did he commit adultery? Yes, there's proof he committed adultery. Okay, that ends the story. You get the whole ball game. And guess what? That really limited adultery.
That's a motivation, you know. Just carry your bank book around with you, you know. When you look at a girl, you look at the bank book instead.
And it was much better for the kids.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the system we have now is just horrific. You know, this whole theory they have with custody.
Oh, it's bad. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
I want to touch on one other thing, though, historically, before we get into this whole thing going on, which I think is terrifying. What's going on YouTube?
Oh, golly! Right. I couldn't believe that when they contacted me.
But you didn't know about it before then?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. But before we get to that, I want to touch on one more thing historically, because I just noticed it today for the first time when I was looking at your Wikipedia page. You had a run-in with Maplethope?
Oh, yeah, I did the testimony. I won the first part. Yeah, and by the way, that Wikipedia, remember, Jimmy, what's his name that created it, made all his money from pornography.
Oh, really?
Yeah? Oh, yeah. Jimmy Wells, is it? I forgot. He did. I wrote on that, you know, and he wrote back all upset. Don't say that. So I said, don't look at me. It's it's proven in the documents. It's not my fault you made your dough. So we know that Wikipedia is more than slanted. But yeah, you
gotta love Judith Reisman's fighting with Wikipedia. She's taking on Wikipedia. Okay, I love it. But tell us about your fight with Maplethope, because the guy's no slack. This guy, you got pictures of him holding a machine gun.
Yeah, Maplethope's dead. Yeah. But when he was up, when all his paintings, or not paintings, that's giving him much too much credit. When his photographs, right? When his photographs were up to, were going to be, hung in the museum as great works of art. So I was asked to testify on that, and it's the first hearing before the judge, Albany's. I testified, and I said, you don't want. There's no need to look at all his photographs. Do not need. That's not the issue. The issue are his obscene, pornographic, child pornography. That's the issue. The ones that are doing that, and so the judge ruled in my favor, which the opposition, the museum was supported, of course, by Playboy. They came in and they, gave what do they call whispering counsel, right? Playboy was whispering counsel. So the judge ruled that I was right, and only the five images should be examined. So then the next round was the actual discussion, or the actual testimony on the 5 images, for which just about every major museum in the United States curator showed up defending these obscene photographs, including the 2 child pornography photographs. And I objected, but I was not allowed to actually give proper testimony. They shut me down. They said, you can just answer these 3 questions or whatever it was. So the jury did not get to hear the facts, which was that everything that Maplethope produced, everything he said in his own interview on, camera, was all erotic. It was all pornographic, every bit of it. So that when he showed this picture of a little girl with a skirt, he shot it from below so that you could, and she had no underpants. He made sure she had no underpants. A little girl was posed with no underpants, and he shot from below so you could see her genitals, her vulva, and the little boy, which no one there knew. The work on that, he chased this little boy around the house, this woman's house, to get a photograph of this naked little boy, and posed him on a plush black chair so you could see his little, private parts, or as this little boy said to me, my in-between. Yeah. Yeah. So, Mapplethorpe really set that whole thing up, and it was child pornography. And there's a lot more that had I been able to testify to the jury, I could have told them. But of course, the Playboy lawyer guy there, Sirkin, he said that I was a fascist. What can you say? So they got to win, but we won on the notion that you do not have to adjudicate based upon that whole genre, that whole oeuvre. You can just look at the few images that would indict the guy. And so it was a major win. And based on that, we should have moved forward, but nobody followed through.
Now, when you were going up against Mapplethorpe, were you aware of his like connections to the occult and the Son of Sam cult and the Process Church and all that kind of stuff?
No, not really. I could tell by what he produced. Yeah. By his productions, by his photographs, I could tell that he was as deviant as they came. Yeah. My gosh! But I had no acquaintance with his connections directly with the occult. It just looked like satanic work. That for sure. But anybody who would deny that had to be totally ignorant.
Yeah, because Amaya Terry actually claims that he had a copy of one of the films, the filming of one of the Son of Sam murders, a snuff film.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is an intense guy.
Yeah. No, I just was going by what he was displaying in the museums. Look, it was pretty clear that those were the better things he could show, and those were pretty bad. So, right.
Oh, boy. So recently, this group called YouTube Investigations, they got a YouTube channel, and they just bought a domain name, and they're doing some good work on what is going on YouTube, which is horrific. Give us an idea of what they're showing you.
Wow. You almost can't even talk. You could talk more easily about Kinsey's rape of the children.
Right.
Than you can about what's being shown to on YouTube. And I just talked to somebody about last week who said, "Oh my gosh," he said, my kids watch that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Billions of, times that these things are watched, because the kids watch over and over and over again, by the way. So you're talking about real brain changing stuff. They are really restructuring the brains of little children. Absolutely. With Spider-Man, Elsa, Batman, all Disney, characters, right? With these beloved characters who are being, how do I say, let me think. So they're sexualized, certainly, that we would easily say. They are all sexualized. The violence, the cutting fingers, the injections with needles, the use of fecal activity, burying the characters, burying Elsa to her neck. And I think it was Spider-Man or Batman, one of the others, and the use of fecal activity there on them, the pornographic depictions with somebody stripping and the heroes lusting after. You're talking about little kids watching this stuff.
Well, right. Just so people understand, this is content provided on YouTube for free. Some of it's in cartoon form, anime form. Some is live actors dressed up as the Joker, dressed up as Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a big one. And this Elsa, they're engaging in sexual activity, urinating on each other, defecating on each other. So some of it's simulated, but some of it's, looks very real.
Mm-hmm.
This is
and the business with Elsa, having maggots climbing in her ear. You get close-ups of that. I mean, anybody's wondering why their children have nightmares, why the child is screaming at night, why the child is experimenting on the dog, on the cat, on the baby in the next room. You wonder why that's happening. Listen, if you want to go challenge that in the courtroom, I will defend you. I will come as an expert. Don't worry. I won't charge a thing. These are horrible what they're doing to the children that are watching. And look, let me ask you, who would portray this stuff? That you got a producer, you got a director, you got the actors, you've got musicians, you've got all these people are involved in vicious attacks on small children. Vicious attacks on small children. There should be there's no reason this is allowed. This has to be illegal, blatantly illegal. I will stand in any courtroom and go for it. But we need proper lawyers to challenge it. And our lawyers on our side are largely so focused on religious freedom, issues, which I don't denigrate, that they do not take up this kind of obscenity. And these are obscene. These are so obscene.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Reisman, there's other content too. I don't know if these guys have told you about it, but there's stuff that I've become aware of. I've chatted with these YouTube investigators on Twitter on direct messages. But there's other content, the content of live children. And they're not involved in any nudity, but what the behavior they're doing, they're acting out is sexual behavior. There's little games and little things, and it's sexual in nature. Children under 8 years old, 7 years old, 6 years old, and there's thousands and thousands of views. There's millions of views, in fact. The comments have all kind of sexual connotation. The expletives, obscenities in the comments. You can find that kind of stuff. You can, if you're saying in this video, I want to do this to this little kid in this video, you can find those terms. All right. Now, not only this, there's little 6-7-year-old girls in these videos, but when you want to view it, you got to prove you're 18 in order to view it. And then there's millions of hits. Now, there's no way that YouTube and Google cannot be aware of this.
And Disney, right?
Right.
Yeah, all of them are aware.
Now you've taken on every battle. What do we do?
Well, I got to get some decent fighting lawyers. I mean, please, anybody out there, who's a decent, fighting lawyer. You can take them down. You can sue for everything under the sun. I mean, come on, get kids who have been damaged. Any parent who's the child has been crying, the child has acted out on other children. This has got to be happening all over. It's not just the country, because I think this is global. I think, it goes out to the rest of the world. But let's not worry about the rest of the world right now. Let's worry about the United States. Your children are being absolutely destroyed. There's no way they can survive watching this kind of violent, degrading, horror-filled stuff. There's no way they can survive intact. It's not going to happen.
That's so true. Just think back to when you were a little kid and you saw when you and me were kids and we saw the Wizard of Oz and the monkeys scared us and traumatized. we had nightmares over that. God, imagine what these kids are seeing now today. It must be affecting them.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody who's out there who wants to pick up on this and start talking to me about lawsuits, I mean, because we can't, or for crying out loud, President Trump, get some of your prosecutors on this. Yes, we've had no prosecution for years and years and years. Now, the law enforcement is picking up the guys engaged in child pornography right and left. Let's get some prosecutors going after Google and going after Disney and going after, what's the other one? I forgot.
Marvel.
Let's get some guy. And I can get you all the brain science data. I can, anything that you need. And let's put out a call for parents. If your child has been watching any of this stuff, like this guy I talked to the other day, if your child is having nightmares, if your child is, you're talking about a lawsuit. You're talking about children who have acted out on other children. Yeah. So please, prosecutors, get on the ball. For goodness sakes, it's going to be your kids who watch this, your grandkids. There's got to be some folks out there ready to defend children in this community, in this society still.
Well, you're down there at Liberty University, right?
Yes.
Well, didn't the president of the university, Fogel's son, endorse Trump? He must have contact with Trump. Can't you knock on his door and go over there I'll go with you.
Yeah, I'm planning to knock on his door, but
I'll go with you.
Yeah, I mean, you go with me.
Yeah, I'll go with you. Yeah.
Let's talk after this, to see what we can arrange, because there's got to be, and there has got to be a prosecutorial addressing of this massive torture to our children.
Or like you said on another show, a congressional investigation, at least the hearings.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
But you know what? I did another show recently about the adoption abuses that go on in the adoption system. Yeah. And they had some congressional hearings about that, but the congressional hearings were in order to reduce the oversight and controls over the abuses that go on in adoptions.
Yeah. That's a problem. That's always a problem. Congressional, we try to get attention to these issues, but you're never sure about how that comes out.
Right.
But a prosecutor, going after these guys, because first of all, that would force the media, I think, finally, to have to cover. I was sorry when Hefner died, because I was sure hoping we could get him on child pornography here and bring him into the courtroom, because those are some of the only ways to get mainstream media to cover any of this stuff.
Well, let me ask you a question now. It's because you've been fighting, you spent your whole life, your adult life, fighting this, and it seems now that it's more systematic than ever. It's more systemic from the highest levels. What do you think is going on? The people who rise to power in this country and other countries, they're involved with this themselves, or they endorse it, or they allow it. What's going on?
Well, combination of all those things. You have to remember. It started really, with Hefner as the pamphleteer.
Right.
So, but before that, and all of our universities listening and picking up on Kinsey's claims that having sex with kids is harmless. Don't worry about it. They're really your partners in these events. Look, I attended a major conference. They never let me back again. In 1981, or was it 1980, in Jerusalem. It was the Fifth World Congress of Sexology. And at that time, I raised this whole issue of Kinsey, because I was raising it with all these other academicians. And I thought, let's do something about this. Well, they had all bought into it. You have to remember, it took years to figure it out. There was hardly an academician who wrote in sociology, psychology, in political science, anywhere where they're talking about sex, who wasn't quoting Kinsey. It just didn't happen back in the 50s. And then, of course, the Model Penal Code, the 1955 American Law Institute Model Penal Code, completely dependent on Kinsey for its data on sodomy, that basis of the Lawrence versus Texas decision in 2003. So all of your academicians got on board. Now we're into our third generation, right? We have 3 generations. We had that first generation, which then taught the second generation. And each time, you're lowering your standards even more. There are fewer and fewer boundaries. Yeah. And then the third generation, we're in our third generation. There's a reason so many academicians in our universities don't believe in free speech. There's a reason that so many academicians in universities testify against Trump daring to speak to the idea of borders. I mean, these are people who have been bought and sold this bill of goods, yeah. And sexually, they are so compromised, so many of them, that you see that when you get to Lori's book, Lori Handrahan, on the epidemic. We have our FBI saying there's an epidemic of child pornography. We don't even deal with regular straight, quote unquote, woman, man, one woman, one man pornography anymore, because our brains are so changed. Our brains need so much more novelty, excitation. And that novelty and excitation will only be satisfied by children now, and not so much by children, by infants, not so much just by infants, by incredible brutalization. So, we come back to the few brave sheriffs. Now, the sheriff that did I did a big piece for him in Florida on pedophilia. Sheriff Grundy, Sheriff Judd. Yeah, there are some out there who are courageous, tough guys, and I just urge anybody who really wants to earn their stars in heaven to take off after the internet people. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: we just had a big breakthrough with Harvey Weinstein gets busted, right? Right. Yeah. It's a tip of everybody's tongue. Everybody's outraged, okay, and rightly so. Then you got this guy, Kevin Spacey, right? Okay, right? Busted, wide open, a little kid, But now you got Kevin Spacey. Part of the story is Kevin Spacey was on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton and Chris Tucker. Now, Jeffrey Epstein's a convicted child molester.
With the slap on the wrist.
Right. We've done many, many shows. But now, why doesn't the media make that connection of Spacey and Epstein? What's the fear? How can there be an overwhelming, consuming blanket over this that no one in the media talks about it?
We just said why. They are in it. And look, if they aren't doing it, they know some boss they're working for or something, and who is, and they are not going to challenge the status quo.
But how do they rise up to the? I don't know any of these people. How do they rise to the top? How do they rise to the top of every industry? When I never meet these people, they never bring it up to me. I don't get invited to these parties.
Well, that's why you don't get invited. I'm not invited either.
Okay, we'll have our own party. How do they rise to the top? A power, blackmail.
Yeah, blackmail and bribery. They're the two big B's: blackmail and bribery. Yeah. Look, I think we explain it easily. Larry Flint.
Right.
When the politicians started to go after the pornography industry, Larry Flint said, look, you're going to go after my guys, He says, I have pictures. And if you're going to try to take anybody out, I will reveal those pictures. Now, that stopped everything. When I was doing my research, and it got killed, got absolutely killed. Why did it get killed? We started investigating. Yeah, there was blackmail, there was bribery with the FBI as well. I was doing work for the FBI when just before the attack came, and the FBI backed down as well. So, they're up at the top, and all you need is a few pictures of the guy raping a child, and still the American public does not like that. Still the American public could tear you apart.
But not as much as 10 years. There are a lot. Look at Woody Allen. People are still going to see his movies and stuff. Yeah.
But they draped the Woody Allen thing, in all kinds of language to make it okay. Yeah. Well, we had that, and Roman Polanski.
Right.
Yeah. So they're all ready to welcome these perverts back into their bosom. They would welcome Weinstein back, in their bosom. But too many high-end women, started screaming and yelling. Well, they're screaming and yelling because they want to work. Well, that's very nice. What about the kids? Why are you not screaming and yelling about the kids? Those gals, large numbers of them, would have known about the pedophilia in the profession. Come on, they would have known about the pederasty in the profession. And why is it only that you want to work? You want to work. You don't want anybody squeezing your stuff. Well, I agree. But why not speak out about the kids? That's sacrosanct.
Yeah, something has to shake loose here. Because it seems like more and more.
We are not having a country at all.
Yeah.
We will not have a country. We don't. It's not the same, Well,
we're down to like the last 3 minutes, Dr. Reisman. I know you have some events coming up. You have an event coming up in Mexico?
Yeah. I'm doing Josh McDowell's having his summit in Mexico. I'll be doing that. I don't know the exact date now. And, I'm doing some other stuff, waiting for it to hit. The Veterans for Child Rescue has a documentary that's going to be coming out, I think, fairly soon, that I've participated in. Really, Craig Sawyer, great job, great group, good guys, and other things, on the docket. But I keep wanting to get something quick that we can go into the courtroom and still bring the Kinsey's victim, who's still alive. She's about 86. Esther, I would really love to have her in there to be able to, before she passes, to be able to testify against Kinsey and against what was done to her, to become part of that, the charts and graphs that he used to become a hero.
Oh my God! Imagine that. And who could you sue there? Who would be the defendant? The Kinsey Institute?
Yeah, sure. Oh my gosh, yes.
Huh.
Yes, indeed. The Kinsey Institute and Indiana University. I mean, the ball game. Their board of directors and stuff. I mean, come on. I've been talking about this long enough. They know.
Yeah, it seems like they have money too. You think we could find a lawyer? I don't know. We got to take a look at it. Maybe we could find someone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dr. Judith Reisman, and what's your website again?
Dr. Judith, Judith, Reisman, Reisman.com. Please go. A lot of stuff there. Download free books and all kind of things.
I'll plug it again at the end of the show. Dr. Reisman, thank you so much. A national hero. That's the word I was looking for. God bless you, Judy.
Thank you, and just let it achieve something.
I know. I hear you.
Blessing.
Thank you. Bless you too.
Bye.
Bye. And now a word from our sponsors. Don't forget, this show is brought to you by pscoco.com. Phoebe Sod is an independent curator with the Cocoa Exchange. The Cocoa Exchange is formerly known as Dove Chocolate Discoveries, and they make the finest silky smooth chocolate because the products start with the best cocoa beans, which are tested for quality and flavor by expert technicians. The Cocoa Exchange offers not just premium chocolates, but anything from sauces and spices to brownie and cake mixes, and even coffee and martini mixes. If you wish to treat yourself or someone you love to a sweet and tasty gift, then the Cocoa Exchange is the brand for you. So you go to pscocoa.com, you click on the Shop Now button. You can see all their beautiful chocolates. You can order it right now tonight. It could be in your mailbox in a couple of days. Or if you want to get into the chocolate business, you want to be a chocolatier just like Phoebe Sod, click the Contact Us button, and you can learn how to get your own website, go into the cocoa chocolate business, and sell chocolate and make a little bit of money there. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. But you also do all kinds of different services for you. An online dating service investigation. It's called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites. And we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites. If you think your ex-husband or something is addicted to prescription medication, or involved in an extreme online pornography addiction, we can produce a report for you that you can use in court. Adoption investigations. If you want to locate your birth parents or your birth child you gave away for adoption, we can do adoption investigations for you. Asset searches for you. Locate bank accounts, hidden assets, hidden properties, hidden income, all different kinds of services in the asset search investigation. Email tracing. If you need to locate or identify somebody from just an email address, we can do an email trace investigation for you, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Archival Revival, the Christian Film Archive, is currently paying for vintage Christian films. They are dedicated to preserving and restoring classic Christian films and media. So if you have original prints, negatives, or other film elements of classic Christian films, or you have audio recording masters for classic Christian record albums, they want to buy them from you. So email archival.revival@gmail.com, and they're going to make you an offer. Archival Revival wants to preserve these classic Christian films so that they continue saving people for years. These films have brought people to salvation. They want to continue that. Their staff has decades of experience in handling and preserving of film elements, utilize the very best climate-controlled film storage facilities around the world. Contact them today at archival.revival@gmail.com. If there's someone you know has these prints, negatives, recording masters, or other materials from vintage Christian films, you can check out their blog at archivalrevival.blogspot.com. Now, just so you understand, Archival Revival wants to pay you for these films. So you can look in your church attic, in the church basement. If you have a friend who runs a Christian youth ministry, these youth vacation Bible study camp, they have these old films in those big metal containers, 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter. Archival Revival wants to buy them from you. So this is a sponsor that actually wants to give you money. And all you have to do is contact them, tell them what you have. If you're in the UK or Ireland or Africa, these films are all over the world, and they're gathering dust, and they're going to deteriorate if they don't get into the hands of Archival Revival. So that's archival.revival@gmail.com, or the blog spot is archivalrevival.blogspot.com. I want to welcome a newest sponsor, SubashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring research network, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I had a little technical problem there. We lost our connection to the station. I think Dr. Judith Reisman, you can find her at drjudithreisman.com. That's Reisman for a national treasure, Dr. Judith Reisman. We have next Barbara Amaya, and I'm probably going to call her Dr. Barbara Amaya about 20 times. She's been calling our last guest Doctor. Barbara Amaya, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Author of Nobody's Girl. Barbara, tell us about who is Barbara Amaya?
Prior to 2012, I probably would have just kind of stumbled over that answer and said, I don't know. Today I am an author, I'm an advocate, and I am a survivor of human trafficking as well.
Okay, and you're the author of the book Nobody's Girl.
Yes.
What is the book about? Give us an idea what the book is about.
The book is a memoir. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's a memoir of my time spent in the streets of New York, and Washington, D.C. for a short time, but for over a decade in the street of New York City. From the age of 12, I was a victim of human trafficking. And the book also includes an informative resource side for law enforcement, medical personnel, parents, teachers, counselors, and young men and women.
Well, now I'm from New York. Okay, I left there. I was born in 1962. I left there in 2000. So give me an idea. No, were you born in New York? How'd you wind up in New York?
No, I was born in Fairfax. Actually Alexandria Hospital, but Fairfax, Virginia. One of the comments in a book review on Amazon said this young girl was from one of the highest cost of living areas in the United States, which is true. But I was from home the summer I turned 12, and I ran away to nearby Washington, D.C. And I ran away many times the first several months.
Okay, so. I could catch you 17 now, but she was 12 once, okay, and then I know she could never run away. Now, what was going on at home that caused you to run away?
Well, like so many victims of domestic minor sex trafficking or human trafficking, sex trafficking, even labor trafficking, which nobody wants to talk about, I was experiencing trauma in my home. I was experiencing abuse. Not to say that every single victim of human trafficking is experiencing abuse. However, I was actually just going over some studies, and there's many studies that point to the fact that, well, first of all, we all know that vulnerabilities are preyed upon. It's about supply and demand, and vulnerabilities being preyed upon. So who's more vulnerable than a child? And then secondly, who's more vulnerable than a child who may have been traumatized in some way, right?
Right.
So they're easier to control, easier to approach, easier to manipulate, easier to coerce into trafficking, right? I say the earlier abuse I experienced set me up as a walking target, really. So I began away, and I was running away from what was happening, but I was running to, right? I was trying to find somebody to believe me and take care of me and all those things children want, right?
Like 12 years old, like you'd run away, and where would you go? Bus station or something?
Yeah. I mean, I'd go downtown to watch it. It was like 10 or 12 miles from my home, and I'd go downtown there, and it soon became apparent what, if somebody offered for me to sleep in their home for the evening, I knew what was going to happen, but I would end up being raped or whatever. And like I say, that set me up for what was going to happen later. Right. But it wasn't hard for a 12-year-old female to find a place to stay. Right. I mean, wherever there are young people, there are predators waiting to prey upon them, unfortunately. So
a 12-year-old kid outside at night in the dark, and grown men would see you, and instead of saying, "Hey, let me call the cops," or "Let me try and get this kid back home," would say, "Let me take this kid home and have sex with her."
I'm skipping way ahead in my story, my experiences, but my trafficker actually ended up dying in prison. But anyway, I can get to that later if you'd like me to. But I often say, what makes me sad about that, and I do feel sad because he could have helped people. He could have helped young runaways instead of preying upon them, right? But he didn't. And like so many people that, I've seen really, really bad parts of the human race, and I've seen some good parts now, thank goodness. But I definitely believe in good and evil, that's for sure.
Well, but not just the guy who just died in prison. And I got to tell you, the last girl I had on to, the last woman, she's a young woman who was involved in this kind of situation here in Las Vegas. She was in a horrific situation where she was kept in this guy's garage and sold to another pimp. And, he died in prison too, and I can't feel sorry.
Really?
Yeah, he died in prison. Great. Good. But besides the guy who died in prison, didn't adults see a 12-year-old kid and say, hey, do you need help?
No,
Never?
No. Actually, in the first few months when I was running away from home, the summer I turned 12, my birthday is July 10th. I was running away from home, and sometimes my parents would come and look for me, sometimes they wouldn't. And I saw notes from. I've actually seen records saying sometimes the parents would look and sometimes they would. Anyway, and sometimes police would find me, sometimes they wouldn't. And those first few months, I went through all the systems. I went through the juvenile justice system, the child welfare system, foster care. I went through all those systems, but I just fell through the cracks or whatever. I don't know. I just try and tell people what was happening in my butt, And so, but get to being out on the street, nobody in the nights out in the street, nobody was coming up and saying, can I help you, little girl? No. Like I said, sometimes the police would for me, sometimes, but other than that, no. I know people were the ones that became the people that would seek to, I always struggle with that word because I don't like the word John, I like the word client, not the word customer. And John minimizes the whole experience. Customer was a business arrangement for me, so I always struggle on finding the right word. People were the ones in my story who would seek to that were clients. Those were the people,
Oh, well, you're saying that the people that you would see in the juvenile courts and stuff like that later on?
Oh, no, not in the juvenile court system. I'm getting mixed up. I'm talking about the people in the street.
In the street.
We're talking about. Yeah.
But now, what about the juvenile court system and all that kind of, these agencies that are supposed to be helping this industry around this? Are they doing any good, or did they help you at all?
Well, they didn't help me. In researching some information for my book, I attempted to find people that were around a few years ago, and I talked to a few counselors in the systems today, and they said things like, "Oh, that wouldn't happen today. You'd be identified as a victim in need of services, and you would have, And I say, well, I hope I would, but I wasn't at that time. And actually foster children are very vulnerable to human trafficking, and very, very, very high percentage of children that are abused in the foster care system and end up being trafficked and trafficking victims,
Well, give us an idea. When you were 12 years old, what year was this? Like the 70s?
Oh, it was a long time ago. I'm but guess what? Having said it was a long time ago, and when I speak across the country, I say, well, first of all, I always project a photo. I only have 3 photos of me from that time period when I was 12. And I always project a photo of me the summer I turned 12, because I want people to see that was me. That was me, 12-year-old me, right? And I say, I'm a woman of a certain age, but it doesn't matter. What's happening is still happening exactly the same way. Exactly. Why would they change their formula? It's working, right? The only thing that's changed is the added element of the internet, which has made it 100 million times worse. Okay. And now it's happening in your living room, parents. Sorry, but it is. It's not like your child doesn't have to go to the bus station to meet a trafficker. They can meet him in the bedroom on the computer, So it's just made it worse, but it hasn't changed the formula of grooming a victim and manipulating a victim. Everything is exactly the same,
It really is amazing how these predators, and like you said, they can sniff out a kid that has problems at home, that's been abused before. They can see that kid, but without any training. You know what I mean?
No psychological degrees or anything.
Right. To help a kid, you got to go to college and take 12 years of college to help a kid. But to be a predator, you just... like the blood, they sniff the blood.
They do. It's like a shark, and they do, and they do have a degree from the street, and they know exactly when they see three girls walking along in the mall, and they approach them and say, "You're so beautiful," and the one of them says, "Thank you," and gets in their face, and they're like, "Okay, not her," and then the other one kind of looks at the ground and goes, "Oh, gee, oh, not me," and they go, "That's the one," because self-esteem is a bubble against traffic. I say, you want to help your child build up their self-esteem, build it up, and that's like a wall that will help them deflect that type of a trafficker, right? That tries to prey upon them.
Your whole time in the street, you had one trafficker, the main one guy who took over you?
Yeah, I actually did. Well, no, I take that back. I was in D.C. and I was approached by this young woman, and she had been sent out by her trafficker. Of course, I didn't know that. I went back with her to her apartment where there he was. But I interacted with her, like he was telling her how to deal with me. And one day they took me to the corner of 14th and I Streets, and they handed me over to the trafficker from New York. And what I think now is that he probably had people in a few major cities like funneling people like me, young runaways or people. And I was only around them for a couple of weeks. And then I was under his control from 12 to 23. So it was a long time that I was there in New York. I've seen studies say the lifespan of a traffic victim was 7 years, but I was there much longer than that, and I'm still here.
Okay, so this guy had you for 11 years.
Yeah, more than that, I think. I mean, when I look at the police records, because, by the way, people go, what? What do you mean police record? Yeah, I was it. I won. Not him, not Ben, not the customers. I arrested, even though I was, by the time I got to New York, I was about 13. So 13, 14, 15, all those years I was arrested, and I went to Rhode Island prison, and I was got a criminal record.
Okay.
By the way.
No,
yeah.
Now, wait a second. Now, so you were 13 years old, and you would get arrested for prostitution. But wouldn't they say, didn't you come up in a runaway database or anything like that?
No, I guess I didn't.
And what about when you went to court?
I was programmed, and I used that one purpose in a paper called The Cult of Human Trafficking. The cult recruitment is exactly the same as sex trafficking recruitment, the same type of thing, same type of manipulation and brainwashing, right? The traffic. Anyway, I was programmed to say fake name, a fake address, fake date of birth. And before I was arrested, let's say the first time, I'd never been arrested before, right? I was a child. I didn't have a criminal record. So that's when my criminal record began, with my fingerprints. This is before the internet, but still, you're right. There should have been the whole time I was in New York, there was only one time that someone ran upstairs to this apartment that I was at and said, "There's somebody down in that bar." I asked about, and they said my whole real name and everything, and I was like, "What?" And I think that my family must have had somebody looking for me or something. That was many years in, though. That was many years after I was in.
So you were getting arrested 13, 14, 15 years old and going to Rikers Island?
I went to Rikers Island one time.
Okay.
That time I was 15 or 16, and by that time, I was heavily addicted to heroin, by the way. And when I went, and it was like 2.5 days in, by the time I went to the police station, was locked up overnight, went to the 100 Center Street, to the court, went to the bus to go to Rikers Island, a bologna sandwich and some Kool-Aid or whatever. And I was very sick because I didn't have any heroin. So I was, I broke protocol from what I was going to say. I started banging on the thing, and I started telling them, wait a minute, I'm really 15. I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. This is my real name. I'm not supposed to be here. And they didn't believe me at first, but then I guess they, did some research, and they told me, your parents are coming to get you, and they're going to be here soon. And then I just had all this emotions. I thought, they're not going to want to see me. I don't know what these people even told them. They're going to hate me because of what I've been doing. And I was feeling, fear, anger, scared, plus being sick from drugs. And they take me down the hall to this room, and they open the door, and it's a trafficker standing there.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And to this day, I don't know how that happened. I do not remember. I don't know how that happened. But my mother, who still says they missed me by like 10 minutes, they went there. They went to pick me up. But I can't say that I stayed there and said, no, thank you. I'll just stay here. No, I left. But, of course I did.
And how was he able to get you? He paid your bail?
I don't remember all the details. I don't remember, but all I know is I got out. And let me say, he did not look like a family member. I don't think it was my father or my uncle or my brother. So I don't know how that happened.
Well, if you turn a minor over to an adult, you want to see a license or some kind of ID, right? You'd think.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? I still don't know how that happened. I don't.
Well,
I don't think I'll ever know.
New York back in the 70s and the 80s, like you said, it's not today. We didn't have all these computers and stuff like that. Your fingerprint come back and you're checking prior records.
Right?
You can make up your middle name. You can fudge around. They didn't even have metal detectors at court. You could walk in court, there were no metal detectors, you know? It was a whole other world.
It was different. Yeah. I'll give it that. But, I still think I still don't know how he even got there.
Right.
I don't think I called him. I don't remember. I didn't have a phone,
Oh, that's right. So how did he know you were there? Yeah.
I don't. Well, he knew I was there in the beginning. He knew I was in there. Didn't want to get out. He could care less. He didn't care. He was just like, do time in there and get out. He didn't care. But,
give us an idea.
I became addicted to heroin. He wasn't giving me the heroin. People always think that, the trafficker got you addicted to drugs. And I go, no, why would he do that? That would cost him money. And he was already calling me. He didn't even, he was actually really angry that I got involved with the heroin. It wasn't the girl out of traffic in the street that brought me up to Harlem and gave me heroin. But
now with this
it numbed my body to what I was having to endure. And it really kept me from going insane, actually. But unfortunately, it was physically addictive now. And so I had to give money to him and money to drugs and everything else.
How's it before you said heroin?
Oh, I mean, every kind of drug you could think of in the streets, all kinds of drugs that were out there in the streets in Washington. All different ones, but.
And what was your relationship?
Physically addicted.
With the guy? What was your relationship with him? Did you think you were in love with him?
Did
you think you were in love with him? With fear?
Both, because that's what they do. The main form of control for a sex trafficker pimp is trauma bond formation. The whole Stockholm syndrome thing. It's exactly that. He drove me to New York, and I remember. For example, I went to change the radio station on the car, and he slapped my hand away, and I was like, I hadn't experienced that yet, any violence yet. So I was kind of like, oh, what? So he was setting up that power dynamic. He made sure that he moved his jacket, and I saw that he had a big, huge gun sticking there, and I hadn't been around guns yet, so that scared me. So your mind begins to form this bond. Person, oh my gosh, trying to kill me. I need this person psychology. He knew exactly to get that going. And what he also did was, I used to say, when I started speaking, I used to say he didn't have sex with me, but that was wrong because I was like almost 13 and he was like, whatever he was in his 30s. So he actually raped me, not have sex with me. Right. But anyway, he didn't do that right away because that was also very intentional on his part because that would have changed the whole dynamic of that, what was happening there, and what he did do was say, tell me all about what happened. Why'd you run away? And he positioned himself as my protector and my confidant and, everything good. And then after a few weeks, he proceeded to throw me down the stairs and beat me with wire coat hangers. So it's be very, very nice, be very, very mean, be very, very nice, be very, very mean. And then your brain forms this this trauma bond, okay? And it's crazy. It's hard for people to understand. That's when I try to explain the whole Stockholm syndrome thing. People don't really know that whole story, some of them, but it's really hard for people to understand that bond.
Yeah, it really is, and because I'm a private investigator. I meet people in trouble all the time,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the worst is these young girls that they're with these, and they run
right back. Yeah.
Right, it may not be a pimp, it could be a boyfriend, but they're being held hostage, and
right.
You can't get them out of there. You take them to the women's shelter, they run right back.
No.
What do I do? You got any advice for me?
You have to have because I was called down to Jacksonville, Florida. Excuse me, hold on. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was called down to Jacksonville, Florida because they had built a residential facility. They had counselors there. They were trying to help victims of domestic minor sex trafficking in Jacksonville, Florida. But what they hadn't addressed this trauma bond. So these young girls were sitting there, like you just said, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever, 16, 17, sitting there listening to this person talk to them. And all they're hearing is blah, 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 blah. And all they're thinking about is running right back to this psychopath, you know, and that's really all they're thinking about. And many other psychological things have happened. Like they, you know, that drama and that life, that secret underworld criminal life, it appeals to a young person like that that's been damaged and anyway. So all of that is coming into play, and all they're hearing is blah, 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 blah. So unless that trauma bond is addressed, and that takes time, and nobody has time, right? But that doesn't take like one hour long conversation. That takes many hours of counseling with a, you know, trauma informed therapist. You know, it takes many hours of getting that child, that person, to see what's really happening, you know, and it takes time. It doesn't take, you know, a few minutes, unfortunately. You know, as much as medical personnel or people like private investigators or law enforcement want to help, it takes time. You can get the ball rolling, you know, but
you know, actually, it's really hard to get the ball rolling too, because I can recall this last time. You know,
I'm trying to be positive.
I know. You know, hey, listen, I tell you, I got all kind of PTSD just myself, just dealing, you know, trying to help people. I can just imagine what you're going through. But the thing is, I remember calling this last time, calling up the women's shelter, right? And I know the people that run this place. You know, they give me special attention. They like me. I've helped them. I volunteered for them. And I'm telling them, listen, just talk to this girl. She's staying over there at this budget suites over here. Just talk to this girl. They said, well, we can't call her. She has to call us.
She has to call us.
You know, what do I do then?
Yeah, well, just encouraging her to call for whatever reason. You know, I'm
going to give you her number.
But
I'm going to give you her number.
Start talking about the guy and the person, you know, all defenses go up.
Right.
And, oh, he's not that bad. You know, he cares about me, and whatever story they're telling themselves, you know. But it's really fight or flight and survival mode in their brain. They don't know that, you know, but it's really about, this person could kill me. This person could hurt me. And I'm going to be as nice and I love them. They don't really love them, obviously, right? It's really deep psychological stuff. I mean, it really takes a long time to, especially for someone like me. I mean, I was under his control for many, many years. You know, I knew his real legal name and everything, you know, and nobody could have told me anything, you know. And I even did try to get away from him. I tried. I ran away all the way back here to Virginia one time, and he came and got me and brought me back.
So you ran away back to your parents' house?
Yeah. And I can see that. I'm sorry, what?
No, yeah. So you were staying at your parents' house, and he came to your parents' house and got you back?
Well, he came to the area. He didn't come to the house and knock on the door.
Okay.
But I can still remember walking down the street. It was dark. It was the evening. And I don't remember. I don't know where my parents were. Maybe they were in the living room. I don't know where they were. But anyway, I remember I got out of the house and I was walking down the street. And I remember him walking down the street. And I still remember thinking, and to this day, it still hurts me to say this. It's like, I don't want to say this, but it's the truth. I really felt like, oh, he came. Oh, look, he came and he loves me. He's coming to get me, you know. And that's the feeling that I had. I believed that. Okay. I believed it, you know, with all my heart. I believed that.
Well, now explain to me a couple of things then, because you knew enough that the situation was miserable that you had to escape.
Right.
But then once he came back looking for you, you thought, I'm going to go back with him.
Well, a couple times on the phone, probably. I probably talked to him, and who knows what he said. You know, probably who knows what he said, because he didn't know where to come and get me at. You know, obviously, I told him. I told him where to go. But
and how'd you talk to him on the phone? He had your number, or you called him?
No, I'm pretty sure I called him.
So you called him. Yeah. Now, was it possibly that you didn't have another boyfriend your own age? You couldn't meet a kid? You know, was that it? You weren't getting attention from someone?
I had boyfriends before I left, before I was running away, but that wasn't the point, you know. I mean, like I said, that whole bond hadn't been addressed. Nobody addressed that. So I was that child sitting at home going, I have to get back. I don't know. It's not that bad. Your mind starts playing tricks on you, you know. You start thinking, I have to get back. I have to get back. And it's hard. It's so hard to explain. You know, I was looking, I knew I was going to talk about this, and I was looking up before our call. I was trying to find, you know, clear instructions, how to break a trauma bond. There are no like steps on it. Maybe I should write about that.
Yeah, but, someone should. I mean, yeah, I think there's a need for that. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it does take months and months of work. And I know one thing I talk about, people don't have time. And by that, I mean, people like you, medical personnel, law enforcement, counselors, nobody has time. The only reason I even made it out of New York is because someone took time.
Well, tell us
That's the only reason.
How did you make it out of New York? How'd you get away from this guy finally, and how'd you get your life back on track?
Well, I was probably going to die. I was 5'9". I'm 5'9". I've been 5'9" since I was young, tall, and but I was like 99 pounds, heavily addicted to heroin, just a walking skeleton. Life wasn't good. I was about to die, and I went. And I would run off and try to hide from him, the trafficker, because I couldn't give him money, give the drugs money, and he would drag me back to him and beat me. It was horrible, horrible existence. And so I would try to hide, and I hadn't seen him around, and I can't say I'd been thinking, oh, where is he? I wasn't thinking that, because the drug trafficking me as well, And so I pulled myself into some drug clinic on the east side. I pulled myself in there. I don't even remember how I heard about it. I went in there. And the counselor there, the intake counselor, for whatever reason, I don't know why, all she was supposed to do was intake. Just like when you get locked up, like take my name, my information, what are you here for, right. What's your address, what's your name, next. But she went above and beyond her job. And she took time to look me in my face and treat me like a human being. I felt 100% that she cared, that she was giving me eye contact, talking to me. And for the first time in decades, I felt I was being talked to like a fellow human being. And it just got through to me. And it made me feel like a person. And she took time and she asked me what I liked and she got me a Social Security card. I had no ID, no Social Security card. I had nothing the whole time I was there. Nothing.
Wait, and that's another thing too. That is so common. All of these girls, they got no driver's license, no Social Security card, no birth certificate, and it keeps them out of the system. It keeps them, out from getting a foothold on anything.
That's purposeful. I mean, these people that are controlling them, whether they're, pimps, human traffickers, psychopaths, people, bad people, whatever they are, they don't want them to have an ID card. Yeah. They don't want them identified.
Yeah, you meet these people in trouble, and it's one of the first things. I don't even have. Okay, I'll take you down and get food stamps. I don't have ID. I got to wait for my ID to come. And then it never comes
from wherever.
Yeah, and it never comes. Month after month after month, nothing ever happens. There has to be a system that the government has to safety net for people in this kind of situation. That especially kids that are out there on the street with no ID and no means of a home and things.
But they have broken it all down into all these different populations, like victims of human trafficking, homeless teenagers, teenagers on drugs, teenagers who were abused, this and this and it's all these different agencies, and none of these agencies and systems are communicating with each other either. Okay, nobody's collaborating right with each other. I'm sure you know that already.
Yeah, and now all the budgets are getting cut. All these women's shelters are all getting because they make their living off of doing these domestic violence classes and stuff like that, and all that stuff's being cut out. I don't know what they're going to do with these people. Put them all in jail now? Because
I don't know.
It's insane.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, we got another half hour.
About the budgets being cut and everything else. I mean, I don't even. And by the way, speaking of kind of all of that, I mean, I'd never voted in my life. I'd never cared. I could have cared less about anything to do with politics or voting or agencies or anything. I couldn't. The human race, in my mind, I really didn't like people too much, and that's putting it mildly. The fact that I would be, lobbying on Capitol Hill, doing the work I do today would have been like going to the moon. I would have never imagined that I'd be doing that. Until 2012. And in 2012, I had this grand epiphany. I got out of New York, right? And then my whole trying to put my life back together started. And I never told anyone about my life in New York. No one. Nobody knew. There's a big chunk of my life missing, but I never told anyone because I thought it'd been all my fault. That's the other thing. Guilt is a horrible taskmaster. It keeps people enslaved because, they want you to think it's all your fault and it was all your idea. And, the trafficker told me, you're going to be arrested. They're going to treat you like a criminal and you're going to say this, you're going to say that. And he was right. So they validated what he told me. Anyway, I tried to put my life together. I didn't know what to do. I left school in the 6th grade. I figured I'm supposed to get married. Maybe I'm supposed to get a job, finish my education somehow, have a child. I don't know. And some of those things worked and some of them didn't. But it wasn't until 2012 when I'm sitting here in my living room in Arlington, Virginia, watching the news, kind of, sort of, not really. It wasn't really, the volume wasn't up. And they started talking about a case like 2 miles from here where gang members were trafficking young women. And I still didn't listen because I didn't know what the term human trafficking even meant. But then they started talking about the techniques they used to enslave these young women. And then I turned the volume up and I went, what? Wait a minute. That's what happened to me. That's exactly what happened. And it's still happening now. As human beings, when we experience trauma, we always think we're the only ones it happened to, right? And I thought that. And all I thought at that point was I had some vague idea, like, I got to do something about this. And within a couple of weeks, I was on that same news channel sharing my story. Started trying to speak places, and I have a major phobia about speaking. I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah, everybody does in the beginning. Yeah,
and I still, I feel like I did the TED Talk. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. But anyway, there were like 1,200 people in there out behind. Anyway, so I self-identified as a victim of human trafficking for the first time in my life. And I knew what happened to me. I had a name for it. So I took my life back and I started trying to make a difference. So what I believe today is everything I experienced this is what I choose to believe. Everything I experienced was for a reason, so I can do the work I do today. That's it. I believe we as survivors are the experts that can make a difference. I believe that.
Now, before 2012, though, did you get married? Did you have any kids? Did you employed?
Well, I got married, but I would always pick. Remember, I had no therapy, no addressing anything, no talking about anything. So I would always pick out of the room of 500 people. I would pick the one alcoholic or drug addict, right? So I always picked the wrong person. And I didn't marry the wrong person, and then we tried to have a child, and I'd never tried to have a child, never tried to get pregnant. I had to go to an infertility specialist, and I had to have surgery because of all the trauma to my young body. I had to have surgery. I had surgery in June, and I got pregnant in July with my one daughter. I'm also a cancer survivor. I had uterine cancer, and I had 3 surgeries in 2006 and 2007. Directly related to being a victim of human trafficking. Directly related. I didn't have foot cancer. I had uterine cancer, okay? I had to have a complete hysterectomy. And I have multiple health issues today because of, I didn't have, health benefits when I was being trafficked.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about now? Do you have medical coverage now?
I have some, I have some coverage.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, it just seems like if we just had decent medical coverage, medical care, forget coverage, if we just had decent health care in this country, that people who have these emotional problems that they're abusing other people could go in and get treatment for that. Right. Stop this from the start. There wouldn't be predators out there walking around.
Right, and most if you look at these men, these people, typically, are there women? There's a few of them, but mostly it's men. Okay, sorry, it is. But if you look at these guys, they have some of the same.
They were abused
issues.
Yeah,
they were. I'm not making excuses for anybody. Trust me, I'm not. I'm just saying you might want to look at that if you want to end this issue. And you're right. They do need counseling. Yeah. And
also, too, the men that are out there seeking to have sex with these little kids, again, also need treatment. They're also usually abusing their kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. a never-ending cycle. Now, I had a question for you before. When you were out there on the street and you'd come into contact with the police, how was that? Were there ever any? Did you ever see any help from the cops when you're on the street, even once?
No, I mean, as far as not, beating me up or being really horrible to me, that was good. But I didn't have any like, hey, wait a minute, you're not 21. Is that your real name? Wait a minute. That never happened, not once. Yeah. They would take a Polaroid photo, they would take fingerprints. But like I said, I didn't have a criminal record when I first got arrested. Why would I have a criminal record? It started then. It started right then when they took my fingerprints. So that's how that worked. And actually one time, and I'm not saying all police, I'm just saying one time I was down on the Lower East Side and I was taken hostage for the whole weekend by this cop. Like he was cuckoo. But, that happened, but that didn't happen every time. But no, I never got any like extra help from the police at that time. That's why I believe law enforcement needs to have training and medical personnel as well. Because I would go to the emergency room. That was my doctor, right? So those guys, those people there, they all need to have training and identifying and what do you do next with this person? Okay, you identified well, maybe this girl, maybe she's 13 or 14 or 15. What do I do with her now?
Let me ask you a question.
Let her go.
Other than this cop who held you hostage, did anybody else ever hold you hostage? A guy you met on the street? Not the pimps, but a guy you met on the street?
Not.
Yeah, the only one.
Wait, let me think. Not for a whole weekend. For one night, I had that happen. I had, I will say I experienced as much violence. Yeah, I will say as much violence from them as I did from the trafficker. Yeah. Because when someone thinks they've bought you, they think they can do whatever they want to do with you. Okay, they're not viewing you as a human being, as a fellow human being, because they have to compartmentalize that and say this body here is a body that I just bought an hour with. They don't want to think this is a fellow human being like my daughter or my wife or my sister or my mother. They can't think that, or they can't do what they want to do with you, right? So they compartmentalize all of that and they put this thought pattern in place. This person is not a person. And so, I can punch her in the face and shove her out of the car and rob her. I had that happen many, many, many times. I was raped. And people, what do you mean? How could you be raped? You were on the street. What do you mean you were raped? Yes, I could be raped. I could be raped, and I was raped. Actually, I was raped so many times, I can't even remember how many times I was raped.
Let me ask you a question now. Have you had any kind of training in psychology or therapy, anything like that?
Yeah, I have. I'm not a licensed therapist or a licensed psychologist, but I've yeah.
Because you seem really tuned in.
I was fascinated with psychology.
Yeah, you seem really, tuned into this kind of thing. It would be
Thank you.
a benefit, I think. Now, what about? Did you get your own therapy for yourself for your traumas?
Yeah, and I'm actually, seeing a therapist. I mean, I think I know that there are some things that I'll get over in my lifetime and some that I never will. I know that I'll always probably have chronic post-traumatic stress syndrome. The percentage of victims like me that have PTSD is like high as veterans of war. I'm not minimizing veterans' PTSD in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying. Wait, and you know that. You mentioned PTSD earlier, right?
No, I have some too. I'm not being treated for it.
You have compassion fatigue, probably, because you're around all these people.
Yeah.
Well, I do believe in therapy. I think it's a great benefit. But what I do also believe is it's really hard to find a good therapist and a good fit.
Oh, yeah.
That's so important. Just because someone's a licensed therapist doesn't mean jack. You got to find a good fit, a good person that you fit with.
That is so true. Compared to growing up in New York and some of the psychiatrists and therapists I met in New York and some of the ones I've met out here. Okay.
Where are you?
I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. So
what are you doing there?
Well, we wound up here. My daughter's going to graduate college. As soon as my daughter goes to college, I'm out of here.
Oh,
another year.
Oh my goodness!
But which is another thing too. a lot of these kids in the street, if they only knew that, because they've all been, half of them been diagnosed, they got with PTSD or trauma, they could be getting a check. They could be getting an SSDI check, and they won't have to live on the street.
Yeah, that's true.
But then it's
money meant nothing to me. Money. That's another thing. Money was like paper to me. Why? Because I was so young when that all happened, and I was handing over hundreds of thousands of dollars. I sat down and tried to add it up one time, and I got so depressed I stopped trying to figure it out because I don't really want to think about that. But anyway, not now, But money meant nothing to me because it really just meant nothing, So I don't know if a check would mean anything to I don't know, depending on the age of the person, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
But I'm thinking about people who, they don't have to be living in the street because they could be getting $1,000 a month.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, now, what about, you hear about these guys, these white knights who look for these young prostitutes and they will try to rescue them. Did you ever run into one of those?
No, I never did. I never...
But you've heard of it, right?
I actually I was down in Little Italy. I used to have a regular person down in Mott Street, and Hester and Mott. And I was down there, and I was very sick from lack of drugs, and I went and banging on this church door, and the priest comes to the door, and I don't remember what I said, and he slammed the door in my face. I'm not saying all churches are horrible. I'm just saying that was my personal experience on that day, So I tried to get help a few times, and it just never happened. But I never had anybody try to come rescue me in the street. No.
But you've heard the term, though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's
and there's kind of a disdain and a kind of thing where people don't want to say like I was rescued.
Right.
Somebody rescued me. And I mean, I really wasn't rescued. I do give credit to the counselor in the clinic for talking to me, trying to send me on a job interview, which was pretty hysterical because, as you can imagine, I didn't know how to go on a job interview. But she found out that my older sister was living in Philadelphia, and she got me, I left and I went on a train to Philadelphia, and I never went back. I never went back to Manhattan until 2013. And it's a good thing I didn't, because I found out I had 5 warrants for my arrest.
Did you ever get those warrants taken care of?
Yes, because I went back in 2013 after working with a law firm for over a year, pro bono, and the Justice Center in New York vacated all those convictions and cleared my criminal record. I no longer have the stigma of a criminal record over my head. I'm no longer a criminal, I was labeled as a criminal, but New York was the first state to put those statutes on the books. Unfortunately, the state that I'm sitting in at this moment does not have those, and neither does our nation's capital. And I've tried in both places to get them on the books to no avail. So in 2012, there were only 7 states that allowed convictions, victims of human trafficking to vacate their convictions. And now there are like 30. But basically, they had to prove that I was trafficked to clear my name.
Wow.
It took about a year. But, I mean, I understand that. They can't just go clearing people's records, But I'm grateful. I'm grateful every day, actually. I wake up every day, and I'm grateful that I'm alive, and I'm grateful that I'm fairly sane. And
who can really say? That's one thing. No one can really. You may think I'm doing better, but I don't know. People still look at me kind of funny.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
nobody even looks at anybody anymore today. I did an experiment. I went to the grocery store and I was like, I'm going to say hello to 10 people. I'm going to see. And I wasn't acting weird or anything. I was just like, hello. And like one person said hello back. Because they were all, what were they doing? Texting, on their devices. Yeah.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time. That's one of my real problems. And even just today, this morning.
Me too.
Yeah, I walked into the post office this morning. I said hello to somebody. God forbid, a big mistake, In fact, 2 people
they think you're crazy. Like, why are you saying hi to me? Whoa.
I don't carry a phone. I don't text all day long. And I do talk to people. Yeah, I talk to people I meet. Because this is what, it's life. You got one life, live it, meet some people.
Life is very short. I believe that.
Yeah.
I tell people that, especially at universities, younger people. I say, I know you probably don't believe me, but I want to tell you this. I know for a fact life is very, very short. Please believe me. Please believe me.
Yeah. Okay, we got about 9 minutes left, okay? Now, I can either ask you what signs to look for in kids that you think that may be at risk at home that we should be looking out to our neighbor kids.
Yeah.
And either that or is there something else that you'd like to fill the time with?
No, I mean, I would say if whatever state you're in, or you're listening to this show, if you come across this audio and this radio show, try to see what legislation is needed in your state as far as human trafficking, and check out what's happening with the CDA, the Communications Decency Act, and Backpage. Go Google that, because it needs to be amended because it was put in place in the 1990s. And the signs to look for, if your child is a teenager or a young, almost teenager, they're probably already pulling back and you're noticing that. But if they're really pulling back or they're being very, very depressed, or there are all kinds of different things showing up in their room and they're talking to people, you don't know who they are, you know what? Make an account. Go onto their social media. Just do it. Go on there and see what they're doing. Try to monitor what they're doing and talk to them and really find out what's going on in their lives,
Yeah, or get a hold of me and send me their phone or their hard drive, and I can tell you everything that's going on in the computer.
There you go.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. But that's a good point, though.
Don't you think that's a good advice? Like letting parents make an account and go onto their. I think that's a good advice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you should be monitoring all that kind of stuff. But the real thing is, you got to spend a lot of time with your kid when they're little. You have to have a relationship with your kid so that they're not afraid to come and talk to you. That's that's the thing. But real quick though, tell people about Backpage and Craigslist and what the hell's going on these things right out in the open on everybody's faces.
Well, it still happens in the street. Don't get it twisted. It still does. However, now with the lovely advent, I have a love-hate relationship with the internet. It's happening online, right in your living room. Your kid, you think they're going to talk about Minecraft on YouTube, but no. They might be saying, I hate my mom. She made me take out the trash. And someone goes, really? Tell me all about it. And before you know it, they're talking to your child. And then if they're trafficking a victim, they put the photo of the person up on, it used to be on Craigslist. It still is in various parts, but they say they took down their adult section, but I don't think they did. But then there's Backpage.com, which is very, very much in the news right now. And traffickers will take their photos of their, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever age victim, and pop them up on Backpage.com and say, new girl in town, la, 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 whatever they're saying. And then they're basically advertising their commodities for sale on Backpage.com. The CEO of Backpage has been taken to task. They've tried to charge him with all these charges. And he says, no, guess what? I'm going in these loopholes of the CDA, Communications Decency Act. You can't do anything to me. I don't know what these people are doing on my website. But that's not true. He does know what people are doing on this website, obviously. And so we're trying to get that CDA Section 220 amended. But there's a lot of people against it, a lot of people with big money, big-time tech people and big-time billionaire people who want billions of more dollars, they don't want us to change that because they're greedy.
Yeah, and
that's the bottom line.
I've done some work on this myself with these the erotic review and stuff like that. And a lot of these websites and these groups are run by pimps and guys who run escort services. They're the same ones who own the sites.
Yep.
Massage
parlors, escort services. Out here in Virginia, there's, all these blacked out windows, massage parlors you have to buzz to get in. Does that sound like a legitimate business? No, and cars out front with New York tags, because the owners from out of state. It's so obvious to people like me that know what's going on,
Right, and even
but there's big money. Whenever there's money, I'm sorry, but that old saying, "The root of all evil." It's true to me. Money is always the bottom line when you look at it.
Greed.
Greed, like I said before.
But the thing is, too, with these Backpage and Craigslist, even if you think, especially here in Vegas, you think, oh, they're adults and they're independent.
They're fine.
Yeah, man. They're these women. Let me tell you, okay, they're really being trapped. They got no ID. They got no ride. They're being bought and sold by other people.
And people believe, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. People believe, oh, they're fine. They're smiling. Look, they're
Happy
smiling.
hooker, yeah.
They're sex workers. I hate that term. That term really riles me. Listen, if you're married for 50 years, let me just put it this way. You're married for 50 years. You and your partner love each other. But one day you wake up, one of you with a headache, and you don't want to have sex. And you love each other for 50 years. Okay, now let's imagine you're a quote unquote sex worker and you have to have sex with 50 people a day. Do you think that's empowering? It's not. Okay. That smile is not really real, So I don't want to hear about being empowered as a liberated sex worker and all that. I never met one person the whole time I was in the street of New York that felt empowered by being out there.
Right. And even when you come here, come here to the casinos in Vegas, and you meet a woman working at the bar in there, and the woman who was kidnapped in a guy's garage and had gangrening and had to cut her finger off was sitting in that bar too. She was held prisoner. She was held a prisoner and wound up in an emergency room. So it's not this victimless, harmless fun that people make it out to. Yeah. And the casinos know about it. These Backpage and Craigslist, these big companies, they all know about it. These big websites.
Well, Google, Google, actually, I'm sorry, they're one of the people that are against the amendment of the CDA Section 230. I'm going downtown next week. We're having a hearing on Capitol Hill again. Because we were making a leeway. We were almost getting this amended so that these traffickers, and the CEO of Backpage is a trafficker. We're trying to get this amended. They have audio. It was a Washington Post article, I believe, that has audio of Backpage employees educating people on how to put their ads up there so they won't get taken down.
Right.
Telling them what verbiage to use. And you want to say that you don't know what's happening on your website when your own employees are telling people what to put up in their ads?
Barbara, Amaya, we're getting down to 1 minute. How can people find you and get your book?
Well, they can come to my website, barbaraamaya.com, and my book, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of lost innocence, modern day slavery, and transformation, important word, transformation, is sold everywhere books are sold, on Amazon, on my website, at my publishers, Animal Media Group, and all over. And thank you.
No, thank you so much. And listen, if something's coming up in the future, you got some legislation you're working on or something like that, give me a call and we'll put you right on the air, okay?
Thanks.
No, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, they had, I'm going to call her Dr. Good night. All right, good night. There you got, I was going to call her again Dr. Barbara Amaya because I had Dr. Judith Reisman. Oh, boy. Well, another miserable show. Oh, boy, what a downer, man, I tell you. Anyway, but here you see I think this is the compilation of the show. Of everything there. First, Dr. Judith Reisman. You can find her website, drjudithreisman.com. A woman who spent her whole life fighting against Kinsey. And, while I'm an open-minded person, I think Kinsey report this and that. Kinsey was a sick, perverted guy that castrated himself and mutilated himself and hit his penis with a hammer and was doing things to little kids. He was hanging out with Crowley. All kinds of disgusting stuff here, okay? All right. And then, Hefner seems like a good... Hefner's hanging out with Kinsey. He's hanging out with Crowley. All this stuff, guys. It seems innocent. It seems harmless until you start looking into it. So first we had our national treasure, Judith Reisman, Fort Maplethope. Didn't even realize the depths of the depravity of that character. Okay, and read The Ultimate Evil and look into that stuff and look into Maplethope. My God, there's pictures of him with a machine gun, with a pentagram behind him over at Raiden's house. And talking with Dr. Reisman about YouTube and this ElsaGate. and this content that's on YouTube right in our faces. You know, this big chain. What's the most profitable company out there right now? Google and YouTube and these companies. And they're promoting this. And then we got another guest here, Barbara Amaya. Her book is Nobody's Girl. You can check out her story. And here's a specific woman who was a victim, not a victim, a survivor of this stuff, but she was targeted as a child and her whole life. And what a different turn her life could have took, you know, if she didn't have to go through with living in the streets of Manhattan, being kidnapped by a cop and held hostage, all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to be talking on the Friday night show. For people who don't realize, I do a live Friday night segment at 7 p.m. from 7 to 8 p.m. where I do it live, and it's a monologue where I just talk about what's gone on in the week in my life and different reports and things I'm working on. And this week, I got all this stuff going on with Trump, this gossip with this book. I'd love to talk about that. But what I have planned, I may talk about that. But what I have planned is again, it's on this theme, on this topic of human trafficking and child abuse and child exploitation. And we're going to be talking about Liz Cronkin and her BS article she wrote there about how Trump is arresting 1,400 pedophiles. And all that. Okay, I've examined this thing backwards and forward. It's just made up. And the theme I want to get out to you here is that we can't just pretend something's being done about this just to feel better. Okay? And we can't allow people to lie to us and tell us things are being done. The other thing we're going to be talking about is the 4,000, 10,000, 2,200 sealed indictments. And we're going to be getting into all of that. I'm going to explain to you about how PACER works and how sealed indictments work. And by the way, just because these are sealed court hearings and pleadings and complaints, this is not necessarily 4,000 indictments. It could be 400 indictments, okay, or 100 indictments and 4,000 other court appearances here that are sealed. So let's not get all carried away here, okay? And just because there's a bunch of sealed indictments doesn't mean that it's related to human trafficking or child exploitation or anything. We don't know what it is because it's sealed. It could be something involved with immigration or gangs or drug trafficking. We don't know what these, it could be about the Russian stuff. We don't know what these indictments are. They could be unrelated to each other. We don't know. We have a new Department of Justice, a new Attorney General, and this is how he's doing things with the sealed indictments. We're going to look into that. And we're going to be talking about, what was the other thing? Real quick, I'm losing my mind. Oh, about how Trump signs this executive order about civil human rights abuses. Okay, and then, well, this must be he's rounding up pedophiles. There's no indication he's rounding up pedophiles with that either, okay? So we're going to be examining all these things in detail, patiently, and looking over all these incredibly wild fishtails of how there's, right around the corner, all these arrests are about to happen, people are being rounded up in pedophile rings and all, blah, 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 blah. And all it is talking nonsense, because none of that stuff is really happening, guys. What we're seeing is, if anything, is things are getting worse. Okay? And if you don't believe me, go to YouTube and look up ElsaGate. Okay? And see, you can see this stuff for your own eyes. You don't get arrested for watching this. This isn't like, oh, I'm going to go on the deep web and I'm going to get arrested if I look at something. This is stuff that's right on the open. That's being promoted. Millions and millions of people watching it. And people are making comments there in the comments section. They're getting off on it. Hey, anyway, if you like the show, check out OppermanReport.com. That's where our members section is. I just did a show with Michael the Black Guy for Blacks for Trump. Oh, my God. This guy rants and raves at me for 90 minutes. This is an intense guy, okay? All right. And I'm taping tomorrow with another gentleman, Khalil Amani, who coincidentally happens to be the undercover FBI agent who busted Blacks for Trump for his attempted murder. And now a word from our sponsors. You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report members section. In the members section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank Sean Duff at strawmanmusic.com. He's an excellent musician. And I also want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us to produce the show and book guests, who's an excellent author at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. We also do all kinds of different services for you. An online dating service investigation. It's called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites. And we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.